Right, we are right back into our revision series. Hello once more, welcome back to our English lessons presented by Mamily Chudi. We are not going to look into visual literacy but cartoons this time. And learners, please, most of you are asking questions on the comments of things that I've already done. Ma'am, I need assistance with question 5. I need assistance with... Please go once more, go to the playlist. There's a playlist for language. It has all the components of language because there's no way that you can revise using a previous question paper for question 5 without unpacking all the language components that are examined in that section of the paper. Otherwise, you'll just be confused. So please make sure that you revise your active, direct, and indirect, and so forth. And I've also done a couple of revision based on adverts and cartoons. This is merely a revision just to polish and our skills and to refresh our memories. Good people, please, again, a collectible mark type of a question. The only challenge is that you rush to the questions without interpreting the storyline, interpreting the character's facial expression in relation to the context of the story. Establish what is happening in this cartoon. Who are the characters? What is the relationship between the characters? Is the cartoon humorous, meaning that is it funny? If it's humorous, what is that the cartoon has used to create humor? Is it pun? Is it satire? Is it irony? Is it ambiguity or a play on words, right? I've done this couple of times in the previous uploads on visual literacy, on analysis of cartoons. So don't panic, don't be in a rush to just see a cartoon and you just quickly go to the questions. Study the relationship. The first thing, the first point of departure is to establish the relationship between the characters and to know the storyline, so that you know that is it a serious cartoon, is it a cartoon that conveys a serious message, or is it for educative or educational purposes, or again, like I've said, is it just a humorous cartoon? So we have this is a 2025 Northwest Preparatory Examination question paper. We have Calvin and Hobbes by William Watterson. And in the first, we have frame 1, frame 2, and then it goes to frame 3, frame 4, frame 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've got quite a number of frames. And in the first frame, we see Calvin and Hobbes. And then let me just go down again and see if you don't have a note. Normally we have a note. Yes, there's always this. Examiners will include a note. In this cartoon, Calvin is the boy, Hobbes is the tiger, and the woman is Calvin's mother. So we've got the 3 characters. And then we must know the relationship between the characters. It's Calvin and Calvin's mother, and we've got Hobbes as what? As the tiger. Then we go to the cartoons. We've got frame 1 up until frame 10. Your responsibility, therefore, is to establish the storyline, to understand the storyline and establish as to whether is it a humorous cartoon or a serious cartoon. And then know that this is what you call a speech bubble. Then if it has circles like this, then this is what we'll call a thought bubble, meaning that the character is thinking out loud. Here, speech bubble means the words of the character. And then we must also study the character's facial expression. You must also study the character's body language. And then you must know the difference between what we mean by a visual clue and a verbal clue. A visual clue refers to description of facial expression and body language. A verbal clue refers to the words. Now, in a cartoon, if words are bolded like this with capital marks, it means that in relation to the context, it may be the character is shouting, the character is stressing those words, emphasizing those words, or the character is saying those words loud with an use of also exclamation marks. You also pay attention to punctuation in a form of question marks or exclamation mark, as well as ellipses. So these are the visual literacy techniques that you need to understand. And then with regard to facial expression and body language, you cannot answer by saying facial expression, you cannot answer by saying body language. Use adjectives, which are descriptive words, to describe either the eyes are wide open to show that the character is shocked or surprised. The body, in terms of body, you may describe posture or hands, that the character is standing upright, or the character is leaning forward, or the character is slouching. So we need a lot of adjectives. That's where vocabulary comes into play. Adjectives are descriptive words. So there's no way that you can answer and say facial expression or body language. Facial expression, body language refers to visual clues. Verbal clues refers to the words of the characters. Now let's read the storyline. We have established the characters and what we need to analyze. Remember, we analyze first before we can go to the questions. And then we've got Hobbs, who's saying, look, it says you have to be 18 to buy cigarettes. Frame 1. Frame 2, he says 18. And can you see question mark? Let me just erase this so that we are able to see clearly. Yes. You have question mark and an exclamation mark. By then I'll know better, exclamation mark. Now 18 here, bear in mind font size, it's now bolded. That means that he is emphasizing or shouting out the words. You look into the facial expression, the hands are stretched out. Stretched out hands, mouth is wide open. This is how you analyze. And look at Tiger Hobbs looks very much surprised. He is staring at who? At Calvin. Right. Then we move along. Mom, can I have a cigarette? The mom says, sure, Calvin. I think your grandfather left some here. Just smoke outside, okay? And then what I also nearly forgot is to also check the background. Background, it means where setting, where action is taking place. Like here you have a couch, we have a lamp. That means that this is in a sitting room. It means it's inside the house. And then Hobbs says, your mom let you have a cigarette? For a mom, sometimes she's pretty cool. And remember, that means that he is still young. So for him to say he's pretty cool, it means that he appreciates the fact that her mother allows him to do what? To smoke. And indeed, Calvin managed to get a cigarette in frame 6. You can see here he is puffing out. Here are the lines that show smoke coming out, and here's a cigarette. Now, in frame 7, this is a very dramatic frame. Look at the mouth is overly wide open. The eyes are wide open. We have the word gag. We've got the word blah. We have the word hug. We have the word cough. He is even holding his chest. His other hand is stretched out. There's sort of a smoke coming out of his mouth to show that he is choking from smoking a cigarette. And now in frame 8, Hobbs says, you'd think this would be an easy habit to break. And then he's still coughing, whiz. There's that cloud of smoke coming out to show that indeed he got choked by the cigarette. And then the mom said, well, now, did we learn a little lesson today? And then he says, gasp, yes. And then Calvin says that trusting parents can be hazardous to your health. And that is an interesting choice of words here, because when you look into the definition of the word hazardous, it's something that poses as a risk or danger to someone or something that poses as a risk or danger. Now, in essence, good people, this is just a humorous cartoon, because the mother allows she wanted to teach Calvin a lesson by allowing him to grab his grandfather's cigarette to smoke, knowingly very well that smoking is not an easy habit. And then he started choking. And then the twist of it all is that trusting parents can be hazardous for your health. And I said hazardous, it means something that poses as danger or a risk. So this is just nothing but a humorous cartoon. Correct. And then once you are done now with the analysis part, that's when you can go to the questions. You don't rush through the questions. You'll realize the same way that you have done with adverts, that when you do or employ this method, it becomes easier to come up with the correct answers. With that said, again, question interpretation is important. Refer to frame 2. You are going to go back to the set frame 2. How do we know that Calvin is very upset? Refer to one verbal and one visual clue, right? Now let's go to frame 2. The question is, how do we know that Calvin is upset? And we need a visual clue and a verbal clue. Can you see that from the analysis we already have an answer? I mean, I said visual is description of facial or body language. From the visual, his arms are stretched out, his mouth is wide open, his eyebrows, he has a frown, his forehead, the forehead is frowned, right? That will be what visual. And then for verbal, the words 18 are bolded. The word 18, not words. Word 18 is bolded with an exclamation mark and a question mark. You see, this is how you deduce answers. And then you go to the question again to respond to it. Correct. And then you say verbal. The word 18 is bolded and with exclamation and question marks. All right, and then visual, we have already said his mouth is wide opened. You can also include that arms are stretched out, or you can say he has frowned his forehead, and that is how you collect your 2 marks. Refer to frame 5. Study the following sentence. For a mom, sometimes she's pretty cool. Use a homonym for the word cool in a sentence of your own. Like I have said when we're discussing an advert, that you must expect questions of language in visual literacy, especially pertaining to the use of synonyms, antonyms, homophones, and homonyms. Now, homonyms, remember, these are words that are written the same, spelled the same, pronounced the same, but the meaning is different. So you need to look into how cool is used there. For a mom, sometimes she's pretty cool. So this cool is an adjective to describe the mother, the character trait of the mother. So you must come with a different definition of what? Of the word cool. For an example, I can say that the weather is cool during autumn. So this cool refers to what? is in the context of temperature, as being cool can also be an adjective to a certain extent. So there's the cool of a temperature, there's the cool to describe the mother's character trait. So you needed to use cool differently on a sentence of your own. That is how you answer to questions of a synonym. Explain how Calvin's body language in frame 6 is in contrast to his body language in frame 7. When we speak about contrast, it means we want to see the opposite, we want to see the difference, right? Now we need to focus in Calvin from frame 6 to frame 7, but not focusing on emotions. Now the mistake that you make right off is that you'll say Calvin is happy in frame 6, where else Calvin is sad in frame 7. Yes, that is a contrast, but the contrast that we have just provided here, it's an emotive contrast. The examiner is not looking for for emotions, but he's looking for body language, meaning that you must describe his body language, how it is in contrast. It is in frame 6 rather, in contrast to how it is in frame 7, not how Calvin is feeling. You see, question interpretation is important. Now we go back to frame 6 and 7 to establish the contrast there. We have already described how Calvin is in frame 6 and 7. Sorry, I think I've been looking at the wrong frames. I've been looking at frame 7 and 6. This is frame 7 and this is a frame 6. So to get this question of contrast, to simplify it for yourself, focus on one feature. For example, in frame 6, you can see that his eyes are closed. But in frame 7, his eyes are wide open, right? And then, for example, again, in frame 6, he is standing still on the ground, but in frame 7, he seems to be airborne. Airborne meaning that more like he is jumping. So you focus on the same feature. Or in frame 6, he's leaning backwards, but in frame 7, he's hunched forward. So here we talk about posture. If you talk about posture in frame 6, contrast it in frame 7 how it is. If you talk about the eyes, talk about the eyes in frame 6, talk about again the eyes in frame 7, but how different are they in frame 7? So in essence, you focus on one feature so that you are able to explicitly and successfully demonstrate the contrast. And this is how you respond to the question. You start by saying that you said again from 6, Calvin's eyes are closed, comma, but in frame 7, his eyes are wide open. This is the contrast. Here they were closed, here they were eyes were wide open. I'm speaking about the same feature differently. Another response is that in frame 6, Calvin is standing still on the ground, but in frame 7, he seems to be airborne, meaning that he is jumping. Or alternatively, you can say, in frame 6, Calvin's body is leaning backwards, but in frame 7, he is hunched forward. And this is exactly how you respond to the question of contrast. Refer to frame 8, rewrite the underlined contraction in full. Remember, contractions are shortened word with the use of an apostrophe mark. For an example, if I don't want to say do not, I say don't. This we call a contraction in English, right? And you'd, it's a contracted word for you would. So, right? And then that's how you collect your mark. Explain how the last two frames add to the humor in this cartoon. Remember, I said if a cartoon is funny, it means that you must be in a position to explain what makes it funny. And for you to respond to this question, unpack the storyline. The last two frames, his mother expects Kelvin to learn from experience of how bad smoking is. Kelvin, however, tells Hobbes that trusting his mother is the real thing that is dangerous to his health. So it is much more sort of ironic in a way. So you unpack what happened in the last two frames that adds to the humor. The answer would be expects Calvin to learn right from experience how bad smoking is, right? However, Calvin tells Hobbes that trusting his mother is the real danger. Is the real danger. Remember, he said that trusting parents is hazardous. So the humor lies on that he perceives his mother to be more dangerous. That is the danger. That is what causes danger to what? To his health. So instead of learning the hard way, he blames that it's not that smoking really that is dangerous, but trusting his mother is what is dangerous to his health. So that is where the humor is. And where do I get the answer again? From the storyline itself. And then the last question, just like in adverts, you'll be asked to discuss. The key word here is to discuss. Do you sympathize with Calvin in this cartoon? Grade 12s, please refrain from becoming too personal in an advert to say, no, children don't listen to parents, then you've end there. Even when you discuss an opinion-based type of a question, always contextualize by including evidence from the storyline itself so that you strengthen your answer and your answer is well substantiated. Remember, you are given the leverage and opportunity to either say yes or no, but what you are interested in is not yes or no, but it's how you coin your reasoning. For an example, you can say, yes, it is terrible to be fooled by a mother. He has no idea how violently his body would react to the cigarette. He smoked, as you can see in frames 7, 6, and 8, that, 7, 8, that Calvin was coughing out loudly to show that indeed the smoke did teach him a lesson. Or you can say, no, the only worthwhile lesson is the one that is learned the hard way. Calvin will always remember how bad he felt when he tried to smoke the cigarette. His mother's parenting strategy is radical but effective. So when you say yes, you need to fully substantiate because it says what? Discuss. So an example can be that it is terrible to be fooled by your own mother, and then Calvin coughed badly after his mother allowed him to experience smoking. and this can be dangerous. Can be dangerous for his health. This is just a mere example. Remember, we can phrase this differently, but what is important is that you ensure that you fully substantiate and you don't become too opinionated and then over analyzing the cartoon, coming with opinions only without relating them back to what transpired in the cartoon itself. And this, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you will collect your 10 marks on Wednesday. Once more, thank you for subscribing. Please don't forget to like the video and to share the link, and stay tuned for more on paper 1.